Hello and welcome to our full strawberry moon meditation. I'm Zara Haji of Yoga Goddess, and I want to welcome you all to our meditation today. Welcome to all of you who are joining us from all over the world. We tend to have a large group worldwide, and today I really want to address um, some of the issues that have been taken front and center stage. Hello, Tabitha. Thank you for saying hello. I'd love to hear from who's joining us today on our live meditation. So please say hello, say where you're joining us from. Hello, Aisha. Welcome. And I'd also love for you to share when you say hello how your heart feels today. If you were to summarize it in a one word feeling or an emoji that would capture that feeling, please share that. My dear friend Christina says hello from the UK. Welcome, Christina. So the word I would use is heavy heart. There's been a lot going on, not only in the world, but in my own personal life that has lent to this feeling of a heavy heart. And today, the invitation for our meditation is to go inward and look at, examine, be with, embrace, feel into our own inner darkness. I strongly feel, both from personal experience and working with hundreds of women all over the world, that our healing work, so much of our healing work needs to be focused on embracing and balancing darkness and light. So I'm just going to say hello. Francisca says happy full moon. Happy full moon to you, Francisca. Colleen says hello. Hello, Colleen. Tabitha says her heart feels heavy. Aisha says my heart feels empty. Colleen says heavy too. Miriam, hello Miriam, says heart feels heavy today. Hi Sally Dixon from the UK. Christina says a little drained. And Anisha says my heart is sad and light at the same time, having a very emotional day. Thank you, Anisha. I think so many of us can relate. Francisca says my heart feels irritated. And Francisca's from Sweden? No, Sweden, I think, Francisca. Just make sure I'm getting it right. Maybe Germany. I forget. Cherie says tuning in from Trinidad and Tobago. Miranda says confused. Yeah, so for the most part, we're not in a bright and cheery place, and that is understandable given the current affairs. I know we have a global, worldwide audience, so what happens in the US doesn't necessarily mean that that's your reality where you are in the world. But I feel that what we can all relate to in terms of the current situation worldwide is, obviously the global pandemic is touching all of us all over the world. And while the current issues of racism, brutality, and cruelty towards Black people, very specifically in America, might feel like an issue that's not about you, how I want to approach today's live cast is to really consider how our relationship with our darkness and the imbalance of darkness and light, how it affects us personally on an individual level, and how that spills into the collective, right? So as women, we are naturally cycling between darkness and light. And I purposely wore my pendant of the moon phases that, I can't get that close, so hopefully you can see it, that symbolizes, the dark moon at the top and the full moon at the bottom and all of the phases in between. And this is the symbol of our cyclical nature. And as women, we embody the seasons and the cycles and the dark goddess and the light goddess. And it's all one, it's all integrated into a whole. And in our current world, we've divided light and dark. We've divided it along the lines of evil and good, and lightness is good and darkness is evil. And that is really problematic when we ourselves feel dark weather is bad, dark feelings are bad, and dark skin is bad. It's a very painful, thank you, Francisca tells me she's in Switzerland, not Sweden, not Germany. Sorry, I keep messing that up. Coming back to the topic at hand. It's very painful when the discomfort with darkness is projected out into the world. I know for myself personally, it took me a really, really long time to not hate the color of my skin. And for me personally, it wasn't a concern of life and death. I didn't feel like my life was being threatened by the color of my skin, but definitely my sense of self-worth, self-confidence, definitely my feeling of being beautiful and worthy was very much dependent on the darkness or lightness of my skin. And that's a legacy that I inherited from my family, which has a lot of internalized racism in my culture against dark skin. And as I reflected upon this for myself, as not a Black woman, but a woman of color, a woman of East Indian heritage with, connection to Africa, to East Africa. My parents are both born in Tanzania, so I have a strong connection to Africa. And for me, the pain is, as I pondered today, what that means, that if beauty, because that's my experience, not about life and death, in terms of the color of my skin, which is a far more horrific reality when the color of your skin actually determines how safe you are in the world. Very, very different experience than your feeling of self-worth. So I want to be clear that it's a different experience that I'm currently referring to, and then I'm going to come back to the feeling of life and death, which is an entirely different experience, because that's actually survival in its realist definition. But what pains me to recognize is my experience of acceptance, of worthiness, of beauty was being measured on a scale of, if I'm closer to whiteness, I'm more worthy and beautiful. If I'm closer to darkness, I'm more ugly and kind of undesirable, actually. So, and why is that? Because I'm closer to Blackness. And that is a horrible, horrible reality that we all need to look at in terms of our own cultural biases, whatever culture or race you belong to. I think it's a painful reality that I know I've lived through, and it still exists in my family until today, that if you are more white, more light-skinned, you are more beautiful and therefore more celebrated and accepted. And if you are darker and more dark skin, and because that makes you closer to being black, then you are less beautiful, less acceptable, less desirable, less celebrated. And that's a pain that I've borne, but that's nothing compared to having your life feel like it's constantly in peril because of the color of your skin. So I just want to put that out there as the part of the experience, my own personal experience, which is, of course, very, very different from what is currently being talked about. And so that's why today my invitation is for all of us to look at the darkness within ourselves. That it took me a long time to love the color of my skin, to celebrate my darkness, and you know, it is really connected to the fact that I don't like to differentiate between the darkness and the lightness within myself. I really appreciate celebrating them both. I like the descent into the dark, enchantress and crone energies. I revel in being sick many, many a time, where you can just be in bed and whimper and whine and complain and be miserable. And I thank you, Tabitha, for appreciating my share. And I welcome all of you who have your own stories of pain around darkness and lightness, whatever that means to you, to please share it in the comments. This is a safe space, and I really would welcome that sharing today as we navigate some painful parts of ourselves, right? And this embrace of darkness and light is part of being a woman, circling back to what I was saying earlier. There was a time in our world where the dark goddess, the death crone, was revered and worshipped and loved, and still is in some parts of the world. I think mostly in like southern India or Tamil Nadu, they have a different appreciation for the dark goddess than I don't know many other cultures do. That there's power there, there's reverence, and there's a humility in at the feet of the goddess that holds the energy of death and dying. And that when we embrace, because you know our menstrual cycle is showing us every month the renewal and rebirth, and then the death and the regeneration, and the death, the transition. And every month as women, we cycle through these energies, but how many times do we actually embrace the dark time? Embrace going inwards, embrace slowing down, embrace our moodiness, embrace our sadness, embrace our anger, our ferocity. And that is something I think that each of us is responsible for doing. To not shy away from our inner darkness, to not shy away from what we deem as undesirable. Because the more that we deny ourselves our true, authentic, whole expression of both darkness and light, I truly believe we unconsciously support the fear of darkness out in the world, because we fear the darkness within ourselves and only celebrate the light. So that's really my invitation for you today, to really consider, what is your relationship with your inner darkness? And I'll just give you a moment to just consider that. What is your relationship with your inner darkness? Okay, I don't have a candle with me, so today we won't be lighting a candle. And just take a moment and feel into that place inside of your heart that maybe today you are in a place of sadness, of confusion, of heaviness, of pain. And how do you show up for yourself from within this place? Is it from a place of warmth and gentleness and welcoming? Or is it from a place of judgment and repulsion and turning away? So I'm just going to give you a few moments to reflect. What your relationship. Hola Alicia, abrazos para ti también. It's my friend Alicia from Mexico. Nice to see you. To really consider what your relationship with your own inner darkness is. And if you can approach this place within you with more kindness, more compassion, more warmth, more love, more caring, then feel free to share in the comments. Aisha says, right now it's judgment and guilt from a place of emptiness. Thank you, Aisha, for sharing. And Helen says, good Spanish. Gracias, Helen. I did live in Mexico for some time, in Spain, so I do speak Spanish, but these live casts I do in English because most of you speak only English. Okay, so I'll give you a few more moments to reflect on your own relationship with your inner darkness, how you show up for your darkness. Miriam says, like it's too overwhelming. Yeah, Miriam, thank you for sharing that. It can feel engulfing. It can feel like a tidal wave that's taking us over. And so that's fear, right? That's overwhelm. And I mean, it makes me think of what happens when these people respond with so much violence. It's fear that takes over. It's that overwhelm of not being able to be with big emotion, right? So we really need to develop the skill of being with our own big emotions, because otherwise it spills into the world in really unhealthy ways, in our relationships, in the way we show up in the world. And so we really want to build capacity for the big emotions, not just the happy, bright emotions, but the ugly, hairy, dark emotions as well. Anisha says, when I allow it to be, I start enjoying my darkness and it goes away faster, almost like befriending it and embracing it. That's exactly right, Anisha. I 100% agree. Jean says, been feeling very dark today. With everything going on in the world and in my personal life, I appreciate the reminder to be gentle with myself. Thank you so much, Jean. Miranda says, underlying fear. Thank you, Miranda. Emily says, when I look outside myself at the media, government, and world, it can definitely feel overwhelming, seeing hate and destruction. Yeah, thank you so much, Emily. So as always, today we're going to meditate. So I like to put out a theme for all of us to consider before our meditation and to really bring a clear intention and focus as we receive the moon ray of today's full moon meditation. which is really beautiful. I'll share with you what Miranda Gray has shared about this month's moon ray. She says this beautiful pale blue-green ray brings calming energies to reduce stress and quieten the mind. It connects us to the gentle courage within our soul, softens our intolerance of others, and enhances our intuitive and psychic abilities so that we can navigate the challenges of the world with peace. The pale blue-green ray gently soothes and brings healing to our injuries on all levels. So I really love that we're going to bring healing and soothing to our energy, to our injuries on all levels. So, and Mariana shares judgmental and overwhelming in relationship to her darkness. Thank you, Mariana. So, we're going to get ready to do our meditation together. So I welcome you to find a comfortable position, whether it's sitting down or sitting up or lying down. Just find a position that's comfortable for you. And then just take a moment to close your eyes and take a couple of centering breaths. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. Let's do inhale for 2, exhale for 4, inhale for 2, exhale for 4, inhale for 3, exhale for 6. One more time, inhale for 3, pause, exhale for 6, pause at the end. Take a deep breath in, right into the center of your chest. Bring your attention right into the center of your chest as you breathe in and out. And center yourself within your heart center. Let your heart welcome you home. Let your heart embrace you in her warmth, in her love, in her kindness. Let your heart mother you as you fall into her arms and be held. All of your hurts and all of your injuries being held by the mother in your heart. Let's get ready to receive the full moon ray meditation for today. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Feel your weight on the floor or on the chair. Let your weight drop down into the support of where you're sitting or lying. And feel yourself held in this place. Now bring your awareness to your lower belly. Feel, know, or see that your womb tree lies within your lower belly. Its beautiful trunk splits into two main branches, and they are full of deep green leaves, small white flowers, and red jewel-like fruits. The tree's roots grow down deep into the earth. Follow them down. Now become aware of the full moon above you, bathing you in the most beautiful silver white light. Within this silver white light lie all the colors of the rainbow, softened into a gentler, feminine vibration. See or feel that within the moonlight are rays, are individual rays of pale blue-green. Pale blue-green light. The pale blue-green light flows over you and through you, down your body and into your womb center. Open your womb and let it fill with the color and energy and love of the Moon Mother. Repeat in your mind, I open my womb center with love to receive the energies of the pale blue-green moonlight. I open my womb center with love to receive the energies of the pale blue-green moonlight. We're going to bathe in the ray of blue-green moonlight for the next 5 minutes. Keep breathing and letting the blue-green light, pale blue-green light, wash over you and fall into your womb space. Pale blue-green light from the full moon above radiates down over you and into your womb space. Keep receiving this ray. If your mind wanders, return to the image of the full moon above, bathing you in silver white moonlight. And within that silver white moonlight, there's an individual ray, or rays of light or pale blue-green. Receive the pale blue-green ray into your womb. Notice how you feel and what you sense and see. Now imagine this blue, pale blue-green light wrapping all around your heart, your shoulders, around your head, draping over your body like a cloak. Wrapping your heart, your childhood, your femininity, your darkness, and your light. All of it. When you're ready, grow your womb tree roots deep into the earth. Bring your awareness to your heart and feel gratitude for the healing gift of the Moon Mother. Take a deep breath, smile, and open your eyes. So I'd love to welcome you into sharing your experience with the meditation today in the comments. What was that like for you? I'll give you a few moments to put words to your experience, what you saw and felt, experienced inside. And share with us what that meditation felt like for you. Let's take a few moments to put into words your experience, whether it's for yourself, in your journal, or share with us here in the group. I want to share a comment from Karen Gibson, which I feel is really important for us to all consider. Referring to some sort of internal negativity as darkness is common, and she says it's disturbing to me. While the light is referenced as pure and peaceful, there are so many references that are used in relation to darkness being negative. And Carrie-Anne says we can all start by not using them. And while I hear that position and I really support it in the idea, part of what embracing the darkness means for me is that it's just as positive, and that when we come from a non-judgmental place where darkness is considered negative, I think that is actually the place to strive towards. There is nothing negative in darkness, but we perceive it through our lack of experience, capacity, acceptance, and welcoming of the darkness. So by turning away from the darkness, actually it perpetuates the fear. And so I feel as though we need to turn towards the darkness and to find there's so much peace in darkness. In darkness, we have night, we have the moon, we have the stars, we have rest, and we have restoration. And in our own cycles, we have renewal, we have pause, we have um, we have we have bleeding, we have time out, and through the study of the feminine and our menstrual cycles and the goddess energies, we recognize that the darkness has just as much value as the light. And so, while I really appreciate you sharing, I also feel it's so important that we take the negativity out of darkness as opposed to turning our back on darkness. And we actually wholeheartedly walk forth and embrace the darkness, just like the death crone that so many people fear. She is just as valuable, worthy, beautiful as the white good mother. So, or the bright light, symbol of the good mother. So I love to see your comments. Tabitha said, you said to visualize the ray washing over us, but I felt it beam directly into my head, into my crown. It's still buzzing with energy. Tabitha, I love that you shared that. For me, it felt like a beam of light right into my womb directly. So I can totally relate. Mariana says, thank you. It was my first time and I feel great. Christina says, replenishing. Alicia says, it's my first time too, and it is good to be engaged with the depth of my femininity. I love you, Alicia. Thank you for being here. Alicia's my neighbor who I just went to see upstairs before doing this. Thank you, Alicia, for coming. Emily says, it's a part of life. Helen says, thank you so much. And Tabitha says, that's a great point. We need to see value in the darkness. So before we end today's broadcast, I just want to leave you, actually, I want to ask a question. Where are you in your cycle? Patricia, while you answer that question, Patricia says, the night is dark, our womb is dark, my daughter's eyes are dark, darkness and light are sisters. I love that. And Francisca says, I felt deeply peaceful and reconnected. Thank you, Francisca. And, the other thing that comes to mind as I give you a moment to share where you are in your cycle is we need, like the darkness, the light follows the darkness, and the darkness follows the light. Day and night, dark and light, they need each other. And so again, we can't divorce one from the other. We really need the wholeness, the whole picture. The togetherness of light and dark, I feel, is what's so essential in ourselves as women and in the collective as a whole. All right. So the reason I ask where you are in your own cycle is I'd love for you to consider today, for example, I am on, I can't remember if it's day 24 or day 25, so I'm very much in my premenstrual phase. I was crying earlier uncontrollably today, so that's characteristic, not usually of me in the premenstrual phase, but of the premenstrual phase in general. And feeling so much heaviness and so much pain inside of myself. And that sense of kind of being bogged down has been really present for me in the last few days, and overwhelmed by the intensity of emotion. And so it makes sense because I'm very much with a, wound full, ready to shed the moon blood. And, my cycle is also shortening. So I keep changing from white moon to purple moon to red moon. So I can't tell if it's going to be a red moon or a purple moon cycle this month because I ovulated pretty late. But it's so helpful when you know where you are in your cycle to really make sense of your emotions. So Vivi says, I just finished my cycle 2 days ago. So Vivi, you would be in a pink moon cycle, I would say. Tabitha says she's 2 weeks in. So Tabitha, you're at ovulation. So that puts you at a white moon cycle. Miriam says the luteal phase. So same as me. So you could be in a red moon or purple moon, depending on when your bleeding comes on. Mariana says, I'm almost getting my period, day 25. So Mariana, you and me are in the same boat. So again, you could be red moon or purple moon. Shelly says day 11. So you're closer to ovulation, Shelly. So sounds like you're more in a white moon. Valerie says maiden phase. So Valerie, I'm having a hard time now. If you're not close to menstruating or ovulating, I'm going to have a hard time figuring out which cycle you're on. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is we have, 4 different archetypes: the maiden, the mother, the enchantress, the crone, which I like to call the go-getter, the nurturer, the enchantress I like to keep the same, and the wise woman. And each of these dominant archetypes is sort of in charge of a particular cycle. So right now, if you're close to your period or on your period, you would be on a red moon cycle. If your period is going to come after the full moon, then you're going to be on a purple moon cycle. If your period is going to come at the new moon, you're on a white moon cycle. And if your period is going to come on the crescent moon, you're on a pink moon cycle. I hope I said that right. So we're closest right now, of course, to a red moon cycle. If you're on your period, that's many women in our community cycle with the red moon. And I'm pretty much a lifelong red moon bleeder myself, but as my cycle shortens, I go through all the different kinds of cycles, I feel, obviously, because if your cycle is not a perfect 29 and a half days, which is the same number of days in the moon cycle phase, then obviously your cycle can change. But sometimes our cycle actually shifts around to mimic where the moon is in the sky. So there's so much information for us to gather up from our relationship with the moon and our menstrual cycle. And so many of you have already started charting your cycle with the moon, who are either in my Moon Goddess program or Moon Charting Mastery, or you've been charting your cycle with the moon on your own through Miranda Gray's work. And you would probably know through your own exploration how much that has given you in terms of your balancing the darkness and light within yourself. And part of overemphasizing the lightness and looking down at the darkness is because we don't like the feelings of the darkness. We're not in a culture that celebrates pause and reflection and turning inward and crying and anger and hurt. and all of these very normal human emotions that are not considered cheerful and happy and bright. And so that is part of the problem and the imbalance. And so, what I love about the practice of charting your cycle with the moon is you really bring acceptance, first and foremost, acceptance to the dark parts of your cycle, the darker times, autumn and winter. A lot of people hate the winter, especially in where I live in Canada, because there is this forcing inside, this, force slowing down. It's cold. It sometimes it hurts the bones. But there is also so much beauty in that forced pause. And through the global pandemic, we can all feel and know what it's like to be forced into a pause. And it feels to me like we're in a global period, like literally the crone has forced us into a pause that's worldwide. So it's not just our period that's forced. We probably haven't been, as a global population, been listening very well to the pause of the period in our own cycle. And so I feel like the crone has said to all of us globally, everyone's going to get a period in the form of this pandemic and everything's going to stop. And we're going to be forced into those dark places within ourselves. And a lot of us have been doing deep, deep, deep work with the shadow. And now through this additional layer, and I don't know the astrology, some of you are much more versed in it than I, but Venus being retrograde, the eclipses, there's so much calling internally into the depths, into the dark places within, to be sat with, to be looked at, to be embraced, to be worked through, to be healed. And that's really the opportunity here in the time of the world that we find ourselves in. So I really welcome you, if you don't have a practice of charting your cycle with the moon, to embrace and adopt one now. This is the time for healing our darkness, for bringing our love and our acceptance and our warmth and our embrace to the darkness within ourselves, and to see it just as good, just as valuable, just as worthwhile to be with, to love, and to nurture from the place of give nurturing to, as any other part of ourselves. And that is really in service of our own healing, and in service of the healing of the collective. So Patricia asks, my last period was on October 31st, 2017. I understand that menopausal women still have cycles. Is that right? So if you don't have your cycle, like you don't bleed and ovulate, or your cycles are kind of missing in action, yes, you still cycle, and you cycle with the moon. And many women, obviously not menopausal women who are experiencing missing periods or amenorrhea, have actually got their periods back from charting their cycle with the moon. But in answer to Patricia, your question, as a menopausal woman, do you still cycle? Yes, you do. And for you, you follow the moon phases, but also from Miranda's teachings, you are actually you are the rainbow. So you hold the light of all the moon rays, like Miranda says, hold all the colors of the rainbow. And as a woman who's past menstruation, you are actually, the light inside of you is the rainbow light. So it includes all the colors of the rainbow. And so again, the darkness and the light is held together in the menopausal woman and in the pregnant woman, right, who's also not menstruating. And I believe also that as we cycle, like as our periods get shorter or longer, however it happens for you when you're perimenopausal, you start cycling through all the different moons, right? The red moon, the white moon, the pink moon, the purple moon. And I was thinking that actually you're getting ready to embrace the rainbow, right? So the crone phase, which is often really looked at as undesirable, scary, unwanted, um, you know, you're dried up and old and no longer, I don't know, a desirable sexual being, ugly, all those kinds of labels. When, from the perspective of the womb blessing path and Miranda Gray's teachings, the crone is actually the holder of the darkness and the light in the rainbow. So I love that image because as your cycles shorten and you start cycling through all the different kinds of menstrual cycle moons, you start to kind of gather the energy of that rainbow. So I just want to thank all of you for being here. And I'm just checking the comments to see if there's anything else. I'll just see. Give me 1 second. Ariane says, it sucks, this rejection of negative emotions. I love the permission of crying and grieving. My good friend died from COVID-19 a week ago. Half my friends have been supportive. Others, even when I say my friend died, say, do you have someone to talk to? With the attitude, this isn't welcome here. I can't be positive all the time. It's tiring. Thank you so much, Ariane. That is really painful when our painful emotions are turned away from. That is really that support of our negative emotions, or what we label as negative emotions. The hard feeling emotions are bad, and the emotions that are positive, uplifting, bright, bubbly, those are the only good ones. So thank you for acknowledging that. All right, so Tabitha says, I think there are two valid points. One, not labeling negative things as dark or referring to them as darkness, and also as society not judging darkness as bad. I agree that we all see color and should acknowledge that, and that seeing color and having love are not mutually exclusive. Thank you, Tabitha, for sharing that. And I think it's really important for all of us to really consider and contemplate that dialogue for ourselves. And I know from my personal experience, it's been a very painful but also healing journey to reclaim my darkness, both in terms of skin color, but also in terms of the feelings inside of myself that I label as dark, and seeing both as beautiful and welcome, and embracing them. So I really welcome that dialogue within the group, within yourself, amongst your peers, in your own circles, and also to consider how embracing your own inner darkness, the dark emotions, the pain, the anger, the hurt, whether you want to see them as dark or just negative. I prefer not to label negative because I don't feel that we should judge emotions as bad or good. So I know it's a tough topic for all of us to agree on, all the different terms and words and phrases. So I want to apologize in advance if anything I said has been hurtful or offensive. I'm sorry if I caused anyone any kind of discomfort or pain. And I hope that each of us can find a space within ourselves to really look at our own light parts and dark parts, and the inward and the outward, the yin and the yang, the masculine, the feminine, all of these so called opposing energies, and discover for ourselves how we can bring that wholeness together. And whether, as feminine beings, charting your cycle with the moon can be part of that journey, then I welcome that exploration. And we'll be sharing the Moon Charting Mastery Program with all of you if that's something you want to explore further. So, thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me today for the full moon, full strawberry moon live cast and meditation. I wish your heart levity, and also I wish your heart heaviness, and that both can live in harmony, in balance, and that you can learn to hold both parts of yourself. Sending you lots of full moon blessings and love. Until next month, I'll see you back here. Until then, bye for now. Stay safe and sending lots of love.